The Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference is coming to Dallas, Texas, February 16, 17, and 18 in 2018. If you know of a better way to get the latest insider knowledge about crypto, to hear directly from the top minds in this field, to interact personally with 800 fellow crypto lovers, hodlers, investors, miners, traders, developers, and founders, then I'd like to hear about it. If you don't, then you don't want to miss out. Register today for the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference. Go to bitcoinsuperconference.com and register today as a super early bird to get the lowest rates on tickets and hotel rooms. That's bitcoinsuperconference.com.
Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost Here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Future Tech Podcast. My name is Josh Thomas and I'm here with Drew Mcelroy from Transfix.io. And Transfix is a platform for the freight and trucking industries in the U.S. and Canada. Hey, Drew, how are you?
I'm doing well, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you. So tell me a little bit more about Transfix. I know that the trucking industry is a major way that things get moved around, at least here in North America. And it's probably ripe for disruption and innovation with technology. So tell me a little bit about what Transfix is doing in that space.
Sure, and I would say that you teed it up well from there. Trucking is quite ubiquitous as it relates to moving products around, and historically quite inefficient. And so that is ultimately why we founded Transfix in 2013. Ultimately, we've created a platform that allows those who own trucks and those who need to utilize trucks to do so in a more efficient manner. And so what that means to us is we're able to both match empty trucks with shipments that need to move, and then ensure that that movement happens efficiently without very much manual labor, and therefore without much cost and with complete visibility, which compared to the way things traditionally work in trucking has been, as you say, quite a disruption.
Yeah, so I mean, I drive down the highway and I see all kinds of trucks all the time. There's, depending on where you're at, there's one every, 50 feet sometimes. And I don't know what's in them, but it just seems like most of the time they're probably not full. So what you're trying to do is fill up that space so that they can make more profitable runs, and the industries who are using them can have more efficient deliveries. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct. And to kind of just add a little bit of color to what you're describing, trucking in the United States, there's about 3 million truck drivers, and believe it or not, there's over 500,000 trucking companies, which, I don't know, at least to me, sounds like an incredible long tail. And so you've got this ridiculous fragmentation. And so if you're a company that is obviously much larger and is doing a lot of shipping, right? Whether it be, Nike or Samsung or Target or somebody like that, these businesses effectively have historically two choices. They can either employ an entire army of people to try to, root out where these individual trucks are on a given day, or frankly, they can turn that operation over to traditional freight brokers, which are the businesses that we're disrupting, who would basically do the same thing on their behalf. And I'm literally talking about armies of people with headsets talking to individual truck drivers all day, every day. And you can imagine how that process very quickly gets inefficient. Not just the actual, talking to those truck drivers, but then the conversations themselves and the tracking and tracing and everything else is incredibly cumbersome. And so the vast majority of that, frankly, waste has been replaced by us and ultimately our platform, which includes a mobile app that our drivers have and a web app that our customers have, et cetera, et cetera. And we're, as you can perhaps imagine, or you can see where this is going, we're using some of the same principles from ride sharing and things like that to match empty trucks with available shipments and then, be the invisible guiding hand to make sure those shipments get where they need to be.
So there's one really mind-blowing statistic that you just shared with me. There are 3 million truck drivers in the U.S. and 500,000 trucking companies. That seems unreal to me. I mean, that's basically one on average. That's sorry if my math isn't all that great, but that's 6 truckers per company.
That's exactly right.
Which means there are, there's one boss for every 6 people. There's one dispatcher for every 6 people. There's one, central, coordinator or office clerk for every 6 people. And it's a lot of overhead. It's a lot of extra communication. Can you just shed some more light on that? Because I don't know of another industry that is to where, the average company has like 6 employees. Could you shed a little bit more light on what are some of the bigger companies and how big are they, and are there a lot of solo independent contractors? Is that why the number is skewed? Just give us a little more information about that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So the unfragmented part of the space, the largest 10 truckload carriers, who are kind of grouped together and referred to as the Big Ten. It's a very creative name. Those folks collectively have somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 to 110,000 trucks. So if you take the largest 10, you've got, like 100,000 out of 3 million. So something like 3 or 4% market share for the largest folks. You've got about 20% true independent owner operator. And so you're correct. It's 97% of those 500,000 trucking companies are 20 trucks and less. So you've correctly established, you've got a massive subset of companies that are, 3 to 6 drivers. The average age of a truck driver in the United States is 57 years old. The average disposable income for a truck driver in the United States is less than $100 per week. You've got an incredibly difficult lifestyle / profession that, by the way, is the number one most common job title in the United States is truck driver. True story. So you've got this, and oh, by the way, as we kind of said before, right? Trucks are fairly important. Most stores and, gas stations and everything else don't hold much inventory. So if trucks stop working, you've got a massive problem as a nation very quickly. And to be perfectly honest with you, that infrastructure is quite fragile. We were talking offline before we started about the polar vortex that's going on right now. That makes an impact. These things have a real impact on real life and real people. And ultimately, that's why we feel, frankly, as good as what we do about what we're doing. This is a startup, and obviously we're out to disrupt a whole bunch of incumbents. But we feel that we're, tackling a real industry and solving real problems. And so, yeah, it's historically quite a mess, to be perfectly honest with you, which is, it makes it a challenge, but it's also what makes the business so exciting.
So, big mess, and so you brought a big broom to clean it up. And tell me a little bit about the technology now and how you're solving this problem of a fractured industry that's critical to our subsistence.
Yeah, so the technology effectively has what I would call, not to be too broad about it, but effectively 2 components. The one component is something that I would say is fairly common, whether you're talking about ride sharing or really any marketplace business where you've got a buyer and a seller. And that is to say, I sort of described it before, right? It's the nuts and bolts of saying, okay, well, if this truck is picking up from here and delivering here, let's use technology to ensure that actually happens, right? And so it's track and trace and exception management and, alerts. Oh, hey, look, this driver got stuck in a snowstorm. He's going to be half an hour late, et cetera, which is, frankly, to the industry, a massive change. For the most part, historically, things are like set it and pray that it gets there. And if it doesn't, you usually find out because the person who was supposed to receive it calls yelling after the fact.
Let me ask a question. So just so I understand it, I would venture a guess that the majority of our audience knows little to nothing about how the trucking industry actually works, me included.
Right.
But I can make some assumptions. I make an assumption that if the truck driver gets hired to deliver XYZ product to, ABC retail store, that there's some sort of tracking going on, and there's some sort of, like, we know where that truck is at all times, and we know where the shipment is, and we know approximately when the delivery time, kind of like UPS operates. I can go on and plug in the tracking number, and I know exactly where my package is when it's on its way. But you're saying that it doesn't operate like that at all.
Not even a little bit, man. Before we came along, so
this is fascinating stuff because, for most of us, we turn a blind eye to how stuff moves around, and we just assume that they've got all of their stuff together, and you're telling us it's different. So, yeah, keep going.
Yeah, man. So there's three types of trucking historically. There is, you mentioned already, UPS and FedEx, which is referred to as parcel. And those are effectively shipments from, 0 to, call it, 150 pounds. Then you've got the middle segment, which is LTL, which is less than truckload, which are basically shipments from 150 pounds up to somewhere in the 5,000 to 7,000 pound range, the total weight of the shipment. And both of those models look fairly simple. And if you just stop and think about UPS and FedEx, right, you may not know exactly how it works, but it's basically a hub and spoke system, right? People go out and make deliveries, they put it into the network, you send it to the West Coast, and then you spoke it out for delivery. Whether it's, 2,000 pounds or a FedEx envelope, those things look pretty much the same. And you're correct. When you're shipping in those two ways, you can enter a tracking number and boom, there it goes. Truckload shipping is what we are specifically focused on. Truckload shipping, trucking in the United States is about a $700 billion a year industry. Truckload is approximately $500 billion of that $700 billion. So it's the lion's share. And when you ship truckload, you can ship all the way up to 45,000 pounds of goods. And what is kind of the hallmark of it is you get utilization of the whole truck. So if you tell it to pick up in Long Beach, California, and delivers sneakers to Chicago, the truck comes to Long Beach, drives directly to Chicago, at least in theory, that's what they're supposed to do, and delivers your sneakers. Historically, so this is where all the fragmentation comes in. If you're thinking about LTL or parcel, like UPS and FedEx, that's not fragmented. You need these massive networks to have warehouses and everything else. All of the fragmentation that we're talking about exists in these little truckloads, these little truckload companies, 1 to 6 trucks. And quite literally, you can be a high-end manufacturer of whatever good you want to imagine. Imagine it gets manufactured in, somewhere in Asia. You literally will have visibility from the facility in Asia with an escort to that port in Asia. So you'll have visibility that whole time. You'll have visibility on the boat across the water into the Pacific, into the port in Long Beach. You'll receive a notification my shipment has arrived in Long Beach and is now in a warehouse in Southern California ready to go to its final destination. But when you send in trucking company ABC to pick it up from Long Beach and deliver to your retail customer's distribution center in, pick a city, Chicago, Illinois, that, for that last 1,000 miles of a 10,000-mile journey is a giant black hole. And the way you find out, something has gone wrong, is the delivery appointment is 10 a.m. Wednesday morning. 11 a.m. Wednesday morning, your customer's receiving supervisor is calling you going, nothing very nice. Where is it? And why if I have all this dock labor sitting here not unloading a truck? And it literally creates a giant game of phone tag. That receiver calls the customer calls the broker calls the dispatcher calls the driver, and hopefully the driver answers the phone and tells the truth, and then we do all that in reverse. All of that to say, he got delayed last night with a flat tire, he's going to be 3 hours late.
Man.
And as you can imagine, that is an incredibly not only wasteful process, but leads to everyone in the chain being pissed off. Counterbalance that with what we're doing, and the story seems really simple, right? Driver's got a mobile app. We know where he is. We know where he's going. We know what time he's going to get there. And we know, what time he's supposed to be there. If those things don't add up, We send alerts to everybody. Everybody knows what's going on. We reschedule them. We're good to go.
Wow. Yeah, you really put it in perspective when you say that I have visibility of my product in the factory, on the boat, in the warehouse, and then all of a sudden it goes dark when it goes on the truck. And that's the problem that you're looking to solve. That's amazing, man. And so tell me a little bit about as you were developing this technology. I know you've been in this game for a while. What has the adoption rate been so far, and how long until either your technology or tracking technology in general becomes ubiquitous in this industry?
Well, I would say we're getting there. Between ourselves and a couple of our direct competitors, as well as some companies that are more just enabling tracking without the full platform aspect that I'm describing that we're taking, it's definitely moving in the right direction. Truck drivers as a group, I mentioned before, the average age of a truck driver in the United States is 57 years old. So these are not what I would call, on average at least, early adopters of technology. And there is certainly, in addition to that, there is also a bit of what I would call a libertarian streak within the truck driving community. These are by and large independent-minded individuals who often become truck drivers in the first place because they want freedom and lifestyle and things like that. And so there has been, as we've grown, there has been, I don't know if friction is the right word, but there has been some reluctance. Who are you guys? What is this big brother? You want to ride along in the truck with me? And that's just something that we've, frankly, like any two-sided marketplace, our suppliers, meaning our truck drivers, are, the life of our company. And so we spend a lot of time and energy and, obviously brain, thought power. How do we make this right for these people? And so part of it is just building a brand that people trust, that we are, not, otherwise trying to mess with them. Like, listen, guys, we need to track you because you've got a $250,000 truck and $500,000 worth of, whatever, sneakers or dresses or whatever. We need to know where that is, but we're not trying to cause you trouble. And here's all the other things that we do on your behalf. We're fortunate that our platform and frankly, because of the capital we've been able to raise and take a long view of this industry, we're able to provide a pretty serious value prop to our drivers vis-a-vis the old ways, which is, frankly, why we exist and why any startup is able to get traction. So it's like anything, or like any marketplace, certainly, the development and the value addition to our supply side of the marketplace is critical. And to be blunt, we feel lucky that we get to work with truck drivers. They are certainly a unique bunch, but by and large, you will not find harder working or more genuine people. Like I mentioned before, the average disposable income is less than $100 a week. I mean, these are people who have frankly gotten their ass kicked left, right, and center across this country for a long time. And so the ability to do right by those people is something that, we consider to be, part of our pillars. And so it's, we feel blessed to be able to help them, to be honest with you.
That's great. It's amazing that you found such an archaic system in the 21st century that's still functioning, that's so critical to our continued existence. And it's basically just a giant file cabinet, and people are going and, pulling files out and hoping that they can, find out where these people are, just as an analogy.
I've not heard a giant file cabinet before, but I think I might have to steal that from you, because that is quite literally exactly what we're dealing with. And it's just shining a light on it and making everybody aware. It's just transparency out in front of it.
So what does the future look like for your company and this technology at what industry or taking this to the next level?
Yeah, so I mean, as you can imagine, like any startup, especially one that is tackling such a big market, we've got very big plans. And so right now, in the immediate near term, we are aggressively focused on scaling and taking as much market share within the U.S. and Canada and probably Mexico in the not too distant future as we can. As I kind of mentioned before, we're talking about a TAM here of quite literally something like $500 billion. And so we've been growing, very, very quickly, fortunately, knock on wood here, but 500 billion is a lot. And so there's a period of the next, I don't want to put too fine a time on it, but the next couple of months through 2018, probably, it's really a lot of head down and, like I say, scale and continue to drive as much efficiency and squeeze as much value out for our constituents as possible, so that the flywheel turns that much faster. But ultimately, what we believe we're building is not a trucking platform per se, right? What we're really building is a commerce platform by which those who own assets designed to move goods sit on one side, and those who need to move goods sit on the other side. And as I said, right, we're really creating a platform that enables those two groups to efficiently get paired together and then efficiently guide the movement of those goods so that everybody knows what's happening. And so, right now that's North American trucking. But if we talk about the long-term capital L, it's ship anything from anywhere to anywhere in the world with any asset. It's a true commodity marketplace. If you want to optimize for speed, I can charter you a plane. And if you want to optimize for price, well, there's a tugboat leaving in 20 minutes, and anything in between. I mean, that's ultimately what this platform is designed to do, and that's our Northern Star.
Excellent. So Drew Mcelroy from Transfix.io, this has been really enjoyable, and thanks for shedding some light on an industry that was in dire need of disruption that we didn't even know about. Thanks so much for this, Drew. It's been great.
Josh, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me and hearing about what we're doing. I appreciate it, certainly.
Very good. That'll do it for this episode of Future Tech Podcast. We'll see you next time.
The Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference is coming to Dallas, Texas, February 16, 17, and 18 in 2018. If you know of a better way to get the latest insider knowledge about crypto, to hear directly from the top minds in this field, to interact personally with 800 fellow crypto lovers, hodlers, investors, miners, traders, developers, and founders, then I'd like to hear about it. If you don't, then you don't want to miss out. Register today for the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference. Go to bitcoinsuperconference.com and register today as a super early bird to get the lowest rates on tickets and hotel rooms. That's bitcoinsuperconference.com.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.